You didn't find this transmission by accident. Something in you has been quietly watching your own mind, noticing the gap between what you intend and what your body actually does, between the future you swear you're moving toward and the compulsive loops you still repeat. That gap is not laziness, not weakness, not some vague spiritual blockage. It's a misalignment between the patterns of your thought and the encoding of your nervous system. You think in timelines, but your body moves in circuits. You imagine quantum leaps, but your biology is still bracing for impacts from 10 years ago. If you listen closely, you can feel it, a thin, constant hum underneath your life. The background tension in your shoulders, the shallow breath you've called normal, the subtle clench in your gut when you contemplate change, even the changes you claim to want. This hum is your nervous system broadcasting its own prophecy. I do not yet believe we are safe enough to become who you say we are. Your thoughts have been trying to drag a resistant body across realities. You've repeated affirmations. You've tried to visualize a new version of yourself. You've studied manifestation, vision boards, quantum jumping, timeline shifting. But there's a reason your breakthroughs feel sporadic, like rare glitches in the matrix instead of a stable operating system. Your mind may have glimpsed the higher timeline, but your nervous system still lives in the old one, calibrated to an environment of threat, lack, abandonment, humiliation, or unpredictability. Thoughts are proposals. The nervous system is the voting council. Every time you imagine a bolder future, your nervous system runs a rapid simulation in microseconds. Will this increase exposure? Will this attract judgment? Will this repeat the moment we were shamed, rejected, abandoned, overwhelmed? If the forecast feels unsafe, your body quietly vetoes the timeline. Muscles tighten, breath shortens, attention fragments. You call it sabotage, procrastination, self-doubt. It is none of those. It is protection. Tonight, you are being shown something different. The possibility that your timeline jumps can become effortless, repeatable, almost mechanical, not because you force them harder, but because you synchronize the projector of thought with the circuitry of your nervous system, a coherent field, one intention, one body, one signal. You are not just a thinker of realities. You are a bioelectric instrument broadcasting into the quantum field. The version of you who already moves easily between timelines does not strain, beg, or bargain with the universe. That version of you has resolved the ancient war between vision and physiology. Their nervous system recognizes expansion as safe. Their body knows how to hold more light, more visibility, more power, without collapsing back into old survival scripts. As you hear these words, something in your own system is already testing them, feeling for truth, measuring for danger, mapping where the old reflexes still sit. Keep listening, because this is the moment the signal appears on your inner horizon, the realization that to jump timelines, you must stop fighting your nervous system and begin aligning it. The initiation has begun. You've been taught to treat your nervous system like background hardware, something automatic and unconscious that just runs while your higher mind does the important work. But in the architecture of reality, your nervous system is not background, it's the main interface. It is the shimmer between your consciousness and the quantum field, the living cable that carries your intention into form. Look at your life as if it were an electrocardiogram of experience. Notice the spikes of vision, the surges of motivation, the moments you swear you will never go back to the old pattern again. Then see how the line drops, not always because circumstances changed, but because your internal circuitry couldn't sustain the voltage of that new signal. You call it losing momentum. What's actually happening is a circuit breaker tripping. Your body remembers everything your mind tries to outrun. Every threat, every raised voice, every time you were laughed at for trying, every betrayal that followed after you opened more, every crash that came after you dared to rise. These memories are not just images in your head, they are chemical imprints, posture imprints, breath imprints. They live in how you stand, how quickly you scan a room, how you brace for impact when things go too well. So when you announce a new timeline, I will be seen, I will prosper, I will tell the truth, I will choose differently this time. Your nervous system pulls the archive file. Last time we were seen, we were attacked. Last time we prospered, someone tried to take it. Last time we told the truth, we were abandoned. Last time we chose differently, everything felt unstable. It doesn't argue with your affirmations, it simply initiates protective routines. Muscles tighten so you don't move forward. Fog descends on your thinking, so you forget your plan. Fatigue appears right when you are going to take the bold action. Suddenly you're scrolling, snacking, numbing, busy with anything except the one thing that would move you. This is not moral failure. This is a miscalibrated protection algorithm. You've been trying to upgrade your life by shouting new code at a machine that still believes fire is dangerous, visibility is lethal, and change equals chaos. It hears your declarations of abundance like hearing someone yell, "Run toward the explosion." Of course, it resists. Your nervous system doesn't care about your spiritual language. It cares about pattern recognition. If every time you neared love, you ended up hurt, it tagged love as threat. If every time you expressed power, you were punished, it tagged power as threat. If every time you relaxed, something blindsided you, it tagged rest as threat. Then you wonder why your body panics when you actually get what you asked for. You don't ruin good things. Your circuitry simply hasn't been updated to handle the bandwidth of safety and expansion. It knows how to survive in scarcity, conflict, invisibility. It does not yet know how to survive in coherence. This is why your timeline jumps feel rare and unstable. Occasionally, you override the system through sheer intensity or desperation. You leap. Reality briefly reorganizes. Synchronicities explode. Then, slowly, your biology pulls you back to your familiar baseline. Not because the universe rejected your jump, but because your internal wiring could not sustain the new frequency without registering it as existential risk. You are not broken, you are mismatched. Your thoughts are broadcasting from one timeline, while your nervous system is tuned to another. Two stations playing at once, static, interference, mixed signals to the quantum field. One part of you says, yes, more, while the older circuitry whispers, no, please, this is too much. The field responds to the composite signal, not your conscious preference alone. Until you see this, you will keep taking it personally. You will attack yourself for hesitating, hate yourself for sabotaging, despise your own fear. And every self-attack becomes one more piece of data convincing your nervous system that you are not safe with yourself. But there is a different path. One where you stop trying to bully your biology into ascension. One where you learn to read your own circuitry like a map, tracing the places where your body still doesn't trust your future. In that map lies your key. Because once you understand where the misalignment lives, you can begin the real work, teaching your nervous system to recognize your next timeline not as a threat, but as home. To retrain your nervous system, you first have to understand what it actually is in the architecture of reality. Not as a diagram in a textbook, but as a living interface, a shimmering antenna array that never stops talking to the quantum field. You imagine your thoughts as the primary signal, because they're loud, verbal, obvious. But beneath the language of thought lives the older language of your body. Electrical impulses along nerves, hormonal cascades, micro-adjustments in muscle tone, the opening and closing of your breath. This is the language the field reads first. Your nervous system is your broadcast pattern. When you walk into a room, you don't just arrive, you emit. Your posture, your micro-expressions, the speed of your eyes, the expansion or collapse in your chest, to the tension or softness in your jaw. These are all packets of information about who you currently believe you are and what you expect reality to do next. If your body expects threat, your field tightens. If your body expects judgment, your field contracts. If your body expects abandonment, your field dims, preemptively shrinking to soften the blow. You can say, I am abundant, safe, loved 1,000 times. But if your shoulders are caved, your gut is clenched, your breath is shallow, and your gaze is scanning for danger, the field receives a different message. It hears, I am preparing for loss, I am bracing, I am waiting to be hurt again. The quantum field does not judge this, it mirrors it. This is why you keep meeting the same type of person, replaying the same pattern, reenacting the same emotional climate, even when all the specifics change. Reality is fractal. Different faces, same frequency. It's not punishment, it's coherence. Your outer experience is a hologram of your nervous system's expectation. So what happens when you begin to align thought and nervous system instead of letting them war? First, you stop treating your body like an obstacle and start treating it like an ally that has been over-functioning in survival mode. You recognize that every contraction, every panic spike, every freeze is not betrayal, it's loyalty. Misguided, outdated loyalty to an old timeline that nearly broke you, but didn't. Your nervous system stayed on duty. It just never got the memo that the war ended. Alignment begins when you deliver that memo in a language it can understand. Sensation, rhythm, repetition, proof of safety, in real time. Not lofty concepts, not abstract metaphysics, but slow exhalations when you want to rush, deliberate relaxation of your jaw when you want to argue, softening your belly when you want to armor. You are teaching your biology that it can remain open while expansion happens. Imagine your next timeline as a frequency band, a specific pattern of coherence in the field. In that band, your future self holds more responsibility, more visibility, more intimacy, more influence. To your untrained nervous system, that looks like more chances to be hurt. But in truth, that band also holds more support, more resources, more regulation, more grounded power. The jump is not just a metaphysical leap, it is a physiological recalibration. When your thought and your nervous system send the same signal, I can hold this, I can survive this, I can thrive in this. Your field locks onto that frequency with ease. The jump feels natural, ordinary, even. Reality reorganizes around your new baseline, not in a chaotic blast, but in a series of precise synchronicities that feel almost scripted. The people who appear, the opportunities that line up, the internal doorways that open where there used to be walls. This is what effortless and repeatable actually means. Not that nothing is ever challenging, but that your system no longer interprets every challenge as proof that you are in danger or off path. Instead, your biology begins to recognize growth as familiar. You are building a nervous system that does not flinch when good arrives, that does not collapse when attention finds you, that does not default to self-erasure the moment conflict arises. As that happens, your identity shifts in a way no affirmation could force, because you are no longer cosplaying a future self while secretly vibrating as your old one. You are becoming the new pattern, electrically, chemically, behaviorally. The quantum field registers the change and responds accordingly. Thought and nervous system, once at odds, begin to phase lock. Two waveforms sliding into alignment. One clear station, finally coming through. From that coherence, your next timeline is not an abstract dream. It is a reachable coordinate, waiting for a regulated body that can walk into it and stay. There is a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when you realize you are no longer fully fused with your old reactions. You feel the familiar spike of anxiety, the surge of heat, the tightness in your throat, and instead of obeying it, you notice it. There is a gap. In that gap, the entire architecture of your life becomes editable. This is where thought and nervous system begin their true alignment, not in theory, but in the millisecond, where an old script tries to run and you choose something else. Imagine the old script as a preloaded macro. Trigger reaction, criticism collapse, conflict people-pleasing, opportunity, freeze. For years, these sequences have been instant, invisible. You didn't decide them, they decided you. Your nervous system wrote them in an age when you had fewer options, less power, less perspective. It wrote them to keep you alive in environments that could not see you clearly, hold you gently, or honor your expansion. Now, those same scripts are misfiring in a different world. When someone hesitates, your body interprets it as rejection. When money fluctuates, your body interprets it as disaster. When you express a boundary, your body interprets it as the prelude to abandonment. This is where you start. Not by trying to love yourself more in the abstract, but by catching one script in real time. You feel the email arrive. You see the unread notification. You sense the conversation turning. Your heart rate shifts, your breath shortens, your shoulders inch upward. That is the old program booting. Instead of letting it complete the sequence, you do something radically simple and profoundly disobedient to your past. You stay. You don't rush to fix the feeling. You don't numb it. You don't attack yourself for having it. You become the observer in your own body. This is not dissociation, it is quantum observation. In physics, when a system is observed, its behavior changes. The act of observation collapses a field of possibilities into a specific outcome. In your biology, when a reaction is fully observed without immediate obedience, its inevitability dissolves. The script realizes it is being watched and loses its unchecked authority. You feel the dread rise, and instead of merging with it, you silently name what is happening. My sympathetic system is activating. My body thinks I'm back in that old moment. This is pattern, not prophecy. Words like these are not affirmations in the usual sense. They are orientation codes. You are telling your nervous system, we are here, not there. This is now, not then. I am not the same helpless self who first installed this script. Main just teen. Then you add a second layer. Sensory intervention. You elongate your exhale, even by 2 seconds. You let your shoulders drop an inch. You soften your gaze, relaxing the tiny muscles around your eyes. You uncurl your toes from gripping the floor. These micro-adjustments are not trivial. They are how you deliver a new message to the quantum field through your biology. We are staying open. The situation that would have once triggered collapse now coexists with a relaxed jaw, a slower breath, a slightly more open chest. Your nervous system registers something unprecedented, threat and openness in the same moment. This is how new timelines become physically possible. You are no longer acting from the assumption that every surge of discomfort must be relieved by self-betrayal, by shrinking, agreeing, apologizing for existing, abandoning the boundary, or dimming your expression. Instead, you let the wave move through a body that remains more or less here, connected, breathing, aware. Each time you do this, you write a tiny new line of code. Trigger awareness, regulation, chosen action. At first, the old macro still runs faster. You will only catch it sometimes. You will still cave, still over-explain, still disappear from yourself. But you will notice sooner. You will recover faster. And your nervous system, ever the pattern matcher, will begin to see that survival is possible without the old overreactions. One day, the email lands, the difficult conversation begins, the opportunity appears, and your body does not flood you. It activates, yes, but not to the point of hijack. There is space. Enough space to remember who you are and what you decided. This is alignment in motion. Your thought says, we are safe to expand now. Resulted is lessing when to vary. Your nervous system, once skeptical, now has evidence. We have expanded before and lived. The field receives a unified broadcast. Expansion is our baseline. When that happens enough times, your life stops feeling like a series of heroic, exhausting leaps and more like a continuous shift into wider and wider rooms that your biology can actually inhabit. You are not just imagining your new timeline anymore. You are rehearsing it, somatically, one intercepted script at a time. As you keep intercepting the old scripts, something else begins to happen in the background, almost unnoticed at first. The baseline of your nervous system shifts. What used to feel like a dramatic state change starts becoming your ordinary atmosphere. You are not constantly perched at the edge of fight, flight, or freeze. There is a little more space between events and your reactions, a little more breath, a little more you. This is the beginning of coherence. In quantum terms, coherence is when multiple waves align in phase, amplifying each other instead of canceling out. In your life, coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and physiological state stop firing in conflicting directions and begin to point toward the same horizon. Before, you would say, I want freedom, while your muscles screamed, we only know how to live in confinement. You would envision visibility, while your body hunched to hide. You would plan for abundance, while your cells were braced for loss. Every vector pulled differently. The field responded with mixed results, scattered progress, short-lived wins. Now, each intercepted script removes friction. You are no longer unconsciously voting against your own intentions with your posture, your micro-choices, your breath. You are slowly teaching your biology that there is no automatic emergency in being fully present in this moment, in this room, in this version of you that is incrementally less afraid. This is not about perfection. Coherence is not a frozen state of eternal calm. It is a dynamic harmony, like a flock of birds changing direction together. Your mind can feel fear, your body can register activation, and yet your deeper system remains oriented toward your chosen timeline instead of spiraling back into the oldest one. Picture your life as threads on a loom. Every thought, every nervous system response, every micro-choice is a thread passing through the warp of your core identity. For years, the pattern has been uneven, a few brilliant strands of higher vision woven among long stretches of survival stripes. Beauty, then chaos. Leap, then crash. Signal, then static. As you align thought and nervous system, you are not just changing isolated moments. You are reprogramming the loom itself. Your core identity begins to shift from "I am someone who barely survives" to "I am someone whose system can hold more life, more sensation, more reality, without fragmentation." And as that identity stabilizes, the threads you weave, your words, your relationships, your choices carry a different texture. You notice it in subtle ways first. You wake up and don't immediately scan for what's wrong. You receive a message that would have once ruined your day, and it only occupies a few minutes. You make a request that the old you would have swallowed, braced for backlash, and instead discover that reality doesn't shatter when you ask for what you need. Each of these is a micro jump, not dramatic enough to post about, maybe, but deep enough that your nervous system logs the data. We did something new. We did not die. We may even have been rewarded. The pattern recognition engine starts to adjust its predictions. The predicted future of humiliation, loss, or abandonment softens. A new, probable timeline gets more votes internally. You feel this as an odd, quiet confidence. Not the loud performance of certainty that has to convince everyone, including yourself, but the grounded sense that you can handle what comes. Your field stops screaming emergency into every moment. It hums a different baseline. We have survived everything. We are becoming someone new. The quantum field listens. Where you once broadcast chaotic, contradictory signals, you now emit something increasingly stable. You are not perfect, but you are consistent enough that reality can entrain to you. People who resonate with your new baseline begin to recognize you. Those who fit the old pattern find less grip. Opportunities that require a regulated presence show up because you can increasingly provide that presence. This is where timeline jumps start to feel less like miracles and more like inevitabilities. You make a decision that, in the past, would have left you shredded with anxiety, ending a pattern, saying no, saying yes. You feel the activation, but you also feel something underneath it, a flaw, a sense of ground. Your nervous system shakes, but it does not implode. You ride the wave. Hours pass, days pass. The feared catastrophe never arrives. In its place, new configurations appear. A conversation that would have once exploded turns into an honest boundary. A financial risk that would have paralyzed you becomes a calculated move you can tolerate. A creative expression you would have buried gathers momentum instead of backlash. This is coherence in the wild. The loom of your life is weaving new motifs, repeating them, strengthening them, until they no longer feel like experiments, they feel like you. And the more this coherence stabilizes, the more the quantum field can respond with synchronized, repeating patterns of support. Instead of random flashes of grace you don't know how to repeat. Thought and nervous system are aligning. The pattern is changing. The loom is beginning to show you what it has been trying to weave all along. Most people experience their biggest shifts as accidents. A crisis forces change. A sudden loss breaks a pattern. A mysterious synchronicity opens a door. The nervous system is shocked into a new configuration, and for a brief window, the old identity loses its grip. You glimpse a higher timeline, stumble into it, and for a moment, Everything feels impossibly vivid. Then the window closes. The old wiring reboots. You call it falling back. It may. To make timeline jumps effortless and repeatable, you can no longer rely on accidents. You must understand the mechanics of these windows and learn to open them on purpose. Every jump, no matter how mystical it appears, follows a sequence. 1. Destabilization of the old pattern. Something disrupts your usual script. 2. Heightened neuroplasticity. Your brain and body are briefly more open to new wiring. 3. Introduction of a new signal thought plus emotion plus behavior aligned toward a different self. 4. Stabilization, repetition, under regulation until the new wiring becomes default. You have been unconsciously participating in this process your entire life. The difference now is that you will move through it, awake. Destabilization does not need to mean catastrophe. It can be as simple as breaking a micro-pattern your body is convinced is non-negotiable. You wake up and don't reach for your device first. You feel anxiety and don't open the usual app, bottle, or distraction. You sense an urge to over-explain and you choose silence instead. In that micro-disruption, your nervous system becomes momentarily disoriented. This is not what we normally do here, it says. That disorientation is not failure, it is an opening. At that exact edge, neuroplasticity increases. Your biology is scanning for the new rule. If not the old behavior, then what? Whatever you do next becomes disproportionately powerful. The field is listening closely. This is where most people unconsciously reinforce the old timeline. They disrupt one pattern, panic at the unfamiliar feeling, and run back to the nearest self-soothing loop, apologizing to the past and calling themselves foolish for trying. The window closes. The old wiring tightens. You will do something different. The next time you feel that edge when your body is buzzing with, "This isn't how we do things," you will slow everything down. You will recognize it not as danger, but as the threshold, the jump point, the loom's invitation. You will speak to your nervous system like this. Yes, this feels new. Yes, this feels risky, and we are not 10 years ago. Look around. Indicus. Then you will provide sensory proof. Scan the room, feel the floor, notice your current resources, the present support, the absence of the original threat. You are orienting your body to now. Thought, we are safe enough to try the new behavior. Body, I see no immediate threat in this room. Action, one choice aligned with the future self, instead of the old pattern. That is a mechanical jump. It might be as simple as sending the message you would have avoided, or not sending the apology you would have rushed to, or leaving a situation you would have stayed in, or staying present where you would have run. Your nervous system lights up, heart racing, hands shaking, breath uneven. Old code screams, this is where everything went wrong before, but your conscious awareness stays, breathing through the wave. This is the stabilization phase beginning. Repeatable jumps are built in this phase, not in the glamorous vision. You will not feel like a transcendent being. You will feel like a human whose body thinks it is breaking protocol. But each time you hold your seat inside that activation without crawling back to the old pattern, you are teaching the system, we can do this and live. The quantum field is exact. It reads not only the image in your mind, but the way your biology behaves when you approach that image. If the image of your future self is always paired with panic, collapse, or self-betrayal, the field registers your request as incoherent. If the same image becomes paired with regulated activation and aligned action, the pattern stabilizes. This is what effortless truly means. Not the absence of sensations, but the absence of war inside those sensations. Your body may still tremble in new rooms, but it no longer interprets trembling as a command to retreat. Your mind may still question, but it no longer uses questions to talk you back into confinement. The mechanics become familiar. Edge disorientation, orientation to now regulated breath, aligned choice, survive, repeat. Each cycle carves a groove, each groove forms a track. Eventually, the track is so well worn that your system slides into the new behavior more easily than the old. At that point, the jump is no longer a leap, it is the obvious move. Thought and nervous system have rehearsed the future enough times that the quantum field no longer treats it as potential. It treats it as your signature, and reality responds accordingly. At some point in this process, the question stops being, can I jump timelines, and becomes something more unnerving. Who am I if I no longer live in the old one? Your nervous system is not just a bundle of wires, it is also the house of your identity. As you rewire it, you are not only changing behaviors, you are changing who you believe yourself to be. This is where many people quietly abort their evolution. They can tolerate new habits. They can tolerate short bursts of confidence. But the death of an old self feels like treason. You have been loyal to that self for years. The one who survived by anticipating everyone else's needs. The one who stayed small to avoid backlash. The one who made themselves easy to abandon so that the pain would at least be familiar. That self may have been miserable, but it was known. And in nervous system logic, known equals safe. So when your biology begins to calm, when your baseline shifts, when your responses become less frantic, another layer of activation surfaces: grief. A strange nostalgia for the very patterns that were hurting you. You remember the drama, the intensity, the familiar adrenaline of chaos. Your body misses the chemicals, even as your higher mind is relieved to be free. This is not a sign that you're going backward. It's a sign that identity is catching up. In the brain, identity lives partly in networks that link memory, emotion, and bodily state. Every time you acted from the old pattern, those networks strengthened. When you start acting differently, your brain has to update its predictive model of who you are. That updating requires energy. And all systems, biological and quantum, resist unnecessary energy expenditure. So the old self whispers, "This is too much work. This is not who you really are. Just go back to normal." If you unconsciously agree, your nervous system will gladly revert, not because it loves your suffering, but because it loves efficiency. The old pattern is efficient. It is ready-made. It takes no effort to run. This is why you must treat identity as a deliberate handover. You are not just breaking habits. You are appointing a new keeper of your life. The future self, you imagine regulated, clear, less afraid, is not a fantasy personality. It is a different pattern of prediction. A self whose nervous system expects safety more often than attack, support more often than sabotage, possibilities more often than dead ends. To inhabit that self, you must repeatedly choose their behaviors before the feelings fully match. You move as them, while your chemistry still lags behind. You speak a boundary while your stomach churns. You receive praise without deflecting, even as your skin crawls with unfamiliarity. You rest when your old identity insists you must earn it. These are not performances, they are rehearsals. Each repetition tells your nervous system, this is who we are now. And the system, begrudgingly at first, updates its model. There is a moment when you notice the shift. Someone treats you the way you used to tolerate. The old self surges, ready to explain it away, to adjust, to shrink. But the new self answers first. Your mouth says, no. Your spine stays vertical. Your breath remains more or less steady. You feel the echo of the old identity pounding on the door, outraged. We don't talk like this. We don't risk like this. We don't choose ourselves like this. But your system does not fully collapse. The new pattern holds the steering wheel a little longer than usual. That is the handover in progress. It will not be clean. There will be days when the old keeper storms back in, slamming doors, rearranging furniture, insisting nothing has changed. You will watch yourself reenact an outdated script and think, I thought I was past this. But from the perspective of the quantum field, something crucial has shifted. There is now more than one possible self in play. You are not trapped in a single identity attractor anymore. In physics, an attractor is a configuration toward which a system tends to evolve. Your old identity was an attractor. No matter what happened, your emotions and behaviors curved back toward the same familiar state. With every act of regulated disobedience against that state, you weaken its pull and strengthen another. Eventually, the balance tips. The new self, the one whose nervous system is calibrated to stability and expansion, becomes the stronger attractor. Your automatic reactions begin to resemble that self more often than the old one, even when you're tired, stressed, or not trying. That is when jumps stop feeling like departures and start feeling like arrivals. You are no longer visiting your future. You are being rewritten by it. Thought and nervous system have aligned enough that the quantum field reads a consistent identity signal. This signal says, I am the one who moves through reality this way, and reality, ever coherent, begins to reorganize around that claim. People respond to you differently without knowing why. Systems open to you that once ignored you. Paths appear where you used to see only walls. Not because the universe has suddenly favored you, but because you have finally become a stable version of yourself that the field can recognize, interact with, and echo. The handover completes, not in a single ceremony, but in 1,000 small choices, where you side with the new pattern instead of the old ghost. And in doing so, you become something rare, a human whose identity is not held hostage by their history, but coordinated with their chosen timeline. By now, you've noticed something undeniable. Your outer reality has started to lag less behind your inner work. Shifts that once took months now take weeks, sometimes days. You think a thought, regulate your body around it, act in alignment, and the world answers more quickly. This is not magic. It is reduced interference on the line. But there is still one more layer to stabilize if you want your timeline jumps to be truly effortless and repeatable. You must maintain the bridge between states. Think of your nervous system as a bridge between two continental plates of reality, the plate of the old self and the plate of the future self. When you first begin this work, the bridge is rickety, planks missing, ropes frayed, swaying wildly with every gust of stress. You can cross it, but only when conditions are perfect. The slightest emotional storm, and you freeze halfway, retreat, or fall back into the old terrain. Stabilization means this. The bridge becomes so structurally sound that you can cross it under movement, under weather, under pressure. In human terms, that looks like this. You can stay regulated enough to choose your new pattern. Not just on quiet days, not just when you're inspired, but in the very moments that used to collapse you. The difference lies in what you do with your daily baseline, not your peak experiences. For most of your life, you have trained your nervous system accidentally. Every time you rehearse worst-case scenarios in your mind, you are training it. Every time you repeatedly abandon your needs to keep peace, you are training it. Every time you let your body marinate in unresolved stress, you are training it. The question has never been, am I training my nervous system? But, what am I training it to expect? Now, you will train it deliberately. You begin by sanctifying the ordinary, not the retreat, not the ceremony, not the breakthrough event, but the mundane sequences of your day. Getting out of bed, opening your messages, moving through your tasks, being alone with yourself at night. These are the primary training grounds. When you wake up, your mind instinctively reaches for the familiar dread, the scan for problems. This is a moment of micro-choice. You don't bypass reality with fake positivity. Instead, you allow the scan, then anchor. I can meet this day with a regulated body. You feel your feet. You elongate one exhale. You uncurl your spine by a few degrees. You are not just having a better morning. You are telling the bridge, we cross under low light too. Later, a message hits that would once have detonated your nervous system. You feel the same surge, heat rising, throat tightening, but now you recognize the sequence. Instead of immediately reacting or numbing, you add 10 seconds of orientation. Where am I? What year is this? What actual threat is present in this room? Your body answers, I'm here. I'm not back there. The threat is remembered, not current. Your heart still beats fast, but you've shortened the half-life of the wave. You respond from a slightly more present self, another plank laid on the bridge. At night, when the old identity tries to reclaim you with spirals of self-judgment and fear, you do something even more radical. You interrupt, not with distractions, but with compassion. Not soft, sentimental words alone, but nervous system compassion, giving your body the signals it has always sought externally. You place a hand on your chest or belly. You breathe in a way that calms your own circuitry. You say out loud if you have to, I see why you still expect loss. And we are still choosing this new timeline. You are becoming your own regulator. In the quantum field, this matters, because each time you self-regulate instead of outsourcing that task to chaos, drama, or saviors, you reinforce the signal, I am a coherent source, not just a reactive object. The field can entrain to sources. It can only swirl around unregulated objects. The bridge strengthens according to repetition, not intensity. You could have one transcendent experience that blows your heart open, but if your daily training contradicts it, the old pattern will reclaim you. Conversely, you could have no fireworks, no cosmic visions, and still rewire your entire life through consistent micro-acts of regulated alignment. To the field, those micro-acts accumulate as a single, loud broadcast. This is why your jumps begin to feel less like sudden ruptures and more like smooth phase transitions. One timeline fades as another becomes more solid, not because you manifested harder, but because your nervous system no longer collapses under the conditions of the new reality. It knows how to stand there, to breathe there, to negotiate there, to rest there. You stop worshipping the jump itself and start focusing on maintaining the bridge. So when a new opportunity appears that matches your future self, a conversation, a collaboration, a move, a revelation, you no longer approach it as a one-time miracle you must clutch in terror. You approach it as another crossing you have trained for. Thought, we are ready. Nervous system, we have walked this kind of edge before and lived. Field, signal received. And the bridge holds. There is a point where your inner work stops being only about you. Whether you asked for it or not, your nervous system becomes a node in the larger web, a stabilizing point in the human grid. When that happens, your aligned thought and regulated body no longer just shift your timeline, they start bending probability fields around you. You've already noticed fragments of this. People tell you they feel calmer around you, even when you say nothing. Rooms that used to spiral into conflict soften when you hold your center. Conversations that once ended in the same dead loop begin to take unfamiliar turns. This is not because you learned better arguments. It's because you changed your frequency contribution to the shared field. Every interaction you have exists inside a micro-quantum environment. Multiple nervous systems, multiple histories, multiple expectations overlapping. In the past, your dysregulation would immediately synchronize with others' dysregulation. Someone else's fear amplified yours. Their anger triggered your collapse. Their withdrawal lit up your abandonment code. The field was noisy, reactive, self-confirming. Now, you bring something else into the overlap: coherence. Your nervous system, while still human and imperfect, returns to regulation faster. You notice the surge and ground yourself. You feel the pull of old scripts and choose, even 10% more often, not to obey. That 10% matters, because in group fields, regulation is contagious too. You are no longer just a receiver, you are a broadcaster. When someone's pain erupts in front of you, your old identity wants to fix, appease, or disappear. Your new pattern holds a different posture, present, breathing, not absorbing what isn't yours, not abandoning yourself to keep the peace. On a physics level, you are offering an alternative attractor in the interaction. Their nervous system senses two possible synchronizations: the old dance or your steadier baseline. Sometimes they will still choose the old dance. Sometimes they will escalate, test, or pull harder. Sometimes they will walk away because your new pattern does not feed their familiar loop. But sometimes, more often than before, something unexpected happens. They regulate slightly, without knowing why. They soften. They say the sentence they have never said before. They consider a possibility previously unthinkable to them. You did not heal them. You did something subtler and more radical. You refused to collapse into your own old timeline, and in doing so, you made another reality available in the shared field. This is non-linear impact. From the perspective of your old self, it looks like nothing special. Just another day where you stayed present instead of fracturing. But the loom of reality registers every such moment as a thread crossing multiple lives at once. A parent who snaps a little less because your calm held. A colleague who dares to speak because your boundary modeled a new norm. A stranger who feels seen in a way that interrupts their private descent. Your timeline jump ripples, not as a sentimental idea, but as a literal redistribution of probability. Fewer iterations of the old pattern, more iterations of the new. Over time, this accumulation alters the default settings of not only your life, but of the micro-realities you touch. This is why the work you're doing with your own nervous system is not self-indulgent. It is infrastructural. You are becoming a stable structure in a world addicted to reactivity. A person whose presence reduces entropy instead of amplifying it. A living bridge between timelines, not because you force anyone to cross, but because you exist as proof that crossing is possible. Of course, your system will be tested here too. The more coherent you become, the more the old world will try to recruit you back into its loops, not as a conspiracy, but as inertia. People, systems, and dynamics designed around your former self will feel the friction of your new pattern and unconsciously attempt to restore the old equilibrium. They will accuse you of changing. They will miss the version of you who absorbed everything. They will offer you familiar crises as invitations to regress. Your nervous system will recognize the bait immediately. It was trained on it. The seduction of collapse, of righteous anger, of pleasing your way back into a known hell will sometimes feel almost gravitational. This is where your alignment graduates from personal practice to structural choice. You are no longer just regulating to feel better. You are regulating to hold a portal open. You breathe, not because the situation deserves your calm, but because your timeline does. You stay in your body, not because the other person is safe, but because you refuse to exile yourself from your own center. You remember, in the middle of the storm, that you are not only a character in these interactions, you are also a vector shaping which reality continues. Thought, I will not trade my new pattern for temporary belonging in an old one. Mace, easinevement, nervous system, shaking, yes, and still anchored to the bridge you've built. Field, registering an unbroken signal where there used to be oscillation. In those moments, jumps happen without fanfare. The conversation ends differently. The opportunity doesn't slip away this time. The cycle with a particular person closes instead of looping. You step off the stage and feel ordinary, tired maybe, proud perhaps, but something in the deep architecture has shifted again. Another piece of your life has migrated irreversibly to the new timeline. You are no longer a visitor there. You are establishing residence, and the loom, patient and precise, is already arranging the next set of crossroads where your coherence will be both challenged and strengthened, preparing you for the final realization. You are not just aligning with a timeline. You are remembering that you are the one who weaves. There comes a moment when explanation is no longer enough. You have understood the mechanics. You have felt the circuitry. You have watched yourself choose differently in rooms that once owned you. But understanding is not why you came here. You came because something in you remembered that your life was never meant to be a random walk through probability. You came because the weaver in you was knocking. You have treated timelines like distant destinations, places you might reach if you thought hard enough, prayed hard enough, forced yourself hard enough. But now you see what was hidden in plain sight. A timeline is not a place. It is a pattern, a repeating arrangement of perception, sensation, expectation, and choice. Change the pattern in your nervous system, and you are no longer walking to a new timeline. You are phasing into it. This is why the work has felt both so small and so vast. A breath held 2 seconds longer. A jaw softened before you spoke. A single no where you used to disappear. Insignificant acts, if you judge them by size. Revolutionary acts, if you judge them by trajectory. The quantum field does not crown you for dramatic declarations. It responds to what you are, consistently, and what you are is now different. You have become someone who can feel activation without surrendering to the oldest script. Someone who can hold expansion without translating it automatically as danger. Someone whose loyalty is no longer pledged to the past at all costs. This is the quiet coronation. You as the living loom. Every morning, you wake and the old world tries to recruit you back. It offers you the familiar tension in your shoulders, the ancient dread in your stomach, the rehearsal of disasters that never quite arrive. And every morning, you have a choice so simple it's almost offensive to the mind that wants fireworks. You can agree, or you can breathe. You place your awareness inside the body that once felt like a prison and recognize it as your instrument. You feel the hum of old code and greet it without kneeling. You let your future self stand one step closer, not as a fantasy, but as a current you can actually sense. There is no prophecy in this transmission that overrides your will. There is only this. If you continue to align thought and nervous system, if you continue to offer the field one coherent signal instead of a war of frequencies, your jumps will not be rare. They will be the natural way your life moves. Effortless does not mean without effort. It means without internal betrayal. Repeatable does not mean boring. It means trustworthy, dependable, patterned enough that you can build a life, not just chase peak moments and crash. So, this is the closing and the opening in the same breath. You are no longer the one begging reality to change while your own system clings to the old story. You are the one whose very biology has become a statement. We are safe enough to live the timeline we choose. From here forward, every regulated breath under pressure is a spell. Every aligned action under activation is a jump. Every refusal to collapse into the former self is a stitch in a new world. The signal appeared. You answered. Now you walk as the loom that weaves realities, one nervous system, one coherent timeline, one unbroken signal at a time. And the field, precise and listening, will echo what you have become.